On my 33rd birthday, while candles flickered over a spotless table in an Austin steakhouse, my husband raised a glass and called me a failure, and his friends laughed as if my contributions to their company were a running joke I hadn't heard. I smiled, slid a velvet box the size of a ring across the linen, and told him he should start rehearsing apologies, because in 11 minutes very specific signatures, freezes, and revocations would make his empire unravel, politely, procedurally, and irreversibly. You're watching Revenge Files. Subscribe for a new twist daily. I'm Nora Hale, and I used to build order out of other people's chaos. That's what operations managers do. We make the trains run quietly so louder people can pretend they're driving. When I met Grayson Lawton, he was one of those loud people. Handsome, quick, and allergic to the words "that's not compliant." We married fast. Too fast. I thought his fearlessness meant vision. I learned it often meant paperwork left unsigned, risks left unpriced, and bills left to future us. I put my head down and cleaned. Vendor contracts, onboarding packets, a bare-bones handbook so a regulator wouldn't gut us at first glance. I wrote it. He pitched it. Money flowed, but sloppily. By last spring, Lawton Metrics LLC had a shiny downtown office, a frosted glass logo, and 300,000 reasons to slow down. The reasons had names, payroll tax, contractor misclassification, and a software license we weren't paying for anymore, mine. The last one mattered because I had built the scheduling engine before we married, in my little pre-marriage LLC, Juniper Array. We licensed it to his company with a simple clause, pay or stop using it. He stopped paying after our second anniversary and told me to be a team player. But then he started mocking me in rooms where people wore cufflinks. He liked to surround himself with money. Miles, Trevor, Madison, partners on paper, drinking buddies in practice. Their laughs always landed a half-second late, like they were checking a price before paying. They called me the systems girl and compliance mom. At first I gritted my teeth. Then one night in May, after a bourbon and a brag about getting rid of me from payroll, Grayson leaned in and said, "You'd have nothing without me." Except I'd saved every draft, invoice, and email. The problem arrived on a Thursday, May 2nd, 2024. We were filing April expenses when I found $18,940 in client entertainment coded against the software budget. I asked for receipts. He sent photos from a lake house in Horseshoe Bay. No clients, just wakeboards and a rented chef. I moved the charges to owner draw. He moved them back and told me to stop being petty. That night I opened a binder. The binder had a tab called Exits. Not divorce, not yet. Exits for contracts, subscriptions, bank signers, registered agents, and fleet authorizations. I didn't plan a war. I planned a procedure. If he wanted to mock, he could do it while signing for certified mail. I started with the thing he thought I wouldn't touch, family. His sisters, Sophie and Ava, were 20 and 19, sophomore at UT Austin and freshman at SMU. When Grayson wanted to play hero, he had me open Texas 529 college savings accounts, as owner with them as beneficiaries. He funded them by sweeping from Lawton Metrics' operating account and calling it marketing goodwill. He told his parents he was paying tuition. He wasn't. I was, technically, the account owner. That matters when you push buttons. On May 7th, I requested a beneficiary change. It's legal. I switched both accounts to my niece, Emma, pending a summer program, then initiated direct withdrawals back to the owner because of change of educational plan. It took me 20 minutes. I canceled the authorized payer profiles at UT and SMU the same night. If nobody pays, bursars reverse. Tuition doesn't disappear like magic. But it does roll back to amount due on a screen a college student checks every morning. I felt cruel. Then Grayson posted, "Married up? No. Married dead weight." He tagged me. One problem, company money had become family money without consent. That line would matter later. While that rolled, I called the Texas Workforce Commission. Not on us. For the contractors he'd bragged about reclassifying as 1,099 seconds to dodge overtime. I asked how to file as a witness. They explained the form. I submitted 6 names, pay periods, and screenshots where he wrote, "Clock out, keep working, we'll square it later." I didn't threaten, I didn't hint. I just put it on a calendar, investigation called June 3. Except I also had the engine. Juniper Array's license fee was modest, $4,200 a month. He stopped paying in February. I sent a notice on March 1 with a 30-day cure period. Nothing. April 1st, second notice. Still nothing. On May 15th, I scheduled revocation for June 18th, 8:10 p.m. I picked the time because that's when desserts usually hit tables in rooms where men order double espresso and plan Monday. Before I queued the revocation, I called an attorney. $8,200 retainer. We met on May 19th. I brought receipts, the license, bank statements, and a handwritten list of everything I handled that nobody else even knew existed. Domain registrar logins, DNS, MX records. The Stripe account set up email with my name. The fleet lease for the company cars that Grayson's parents drove because it was cleaner for taxes. My attorney didn't cheer. He underlined risk. You can revoke a license that's in default, he said, but do it by the book. Certified letters, screenshots of the notice in the portal, log times. I did it. Certified letters went out May 20th. Delivery confirmed May 23rd. I scheduled the switch. At 8:10 p.m. on June 18th, the API key would be revoked. At 8:12, the domain would point to a plain landing page stating license inactive, contact support. At 8:13, the mailboxes for support billing cat admin would freeze. It sounds technical. It's just a checklist. Meanwhile, I visited the Travis County clerk. Registered agent filings look boring until you realize they put you in the line of fire. I was agent for 2 Lawton family LLCs because Nora, you're organized. One held their Westlake house. The other held nothing but still existed to confuse anyone who tried to sue. I signed a resignation as agent and filed it. That forces a scramble. If they don't name a new agent, the state can dissolve the LLC. Banks don't like unknown agents. Title companies refuse to close. It's a small lever, but it squeaks loud. I also called the fleet lessor. 2 Range Rovers on the company lease. Authorized drivers Elaine and Victor Lawton. Authorized fleet admin, me. I told the rep there was an ownership dispute and sent the attorney's letter. They put a security hold. Immobilizers could be triggered remotely if the company defaulted or the admin said retrieve. I didn't press it. I just had them flag the account if a payment missed. With Grayson's spending, one would. All along, I prepared an envelope, not the velvet box. A white envelope with tabs. Tab A, revocation logs. Tab B, workforce commission complaint receipts. Tab C, estranged. The last tab had screenshots of bank transfers from the Lawton Metrics account to Lawton Family 529. Owner, Nora Hale. Their words. His idea. My ownership. When a man calls you a thief for moving what he told you to hold, you need his handwriting. By early June, the jokes got louder. At a rooftop party, Grayson wrapped an arm around my shoulder and said, Nora handles our menial stuff. She could leave tomorrow and nobody would notice. The group laughed. A woman with a diamond choker mouthed, savage, but then 2 contractors forwarded me emails. Grayson threatened to blacklist them if they talked to agencies. I sent those to my attorney. He sent a quiet letter to Grayson reminding him witness intimidation is, among other things, unwise. June 30, TWC called. I answered questions. Timesheets, pay stubs, my memory. They thanked me and said they'd request records. I wrote the time down, 10:06 a.m., and put a star next to it. The star meant expect retaliation. I wasn't wrong. June 7th, my building put a 10-day notice on our door for unpaid HOA fees. Not mine, his. He handled that account because it's boring. I paid the $512 that day and sent a photo of the receipt to my attorney. Proof that neglect cost me money I didn't owe. People think revenge is rage. It's receipts. The birthday invitation arrived on June 10th. Group text, celebrating Nora at Jeffrey's, private room, dress up, bring jokes. The last part wasn't a joke. On June 12, I spent $41 at a craft store for a velvet ring box and a foam insert. I printed 2 keys the size of guitar picks on a resin printer, one engraved A, one engraved B. The keys were nothing. The box mattered. Theater is the only language some people understand. June 15th, I mailed 1 more certified letter, revocation confirmation, effective June 18th at 8:10 p.m. It included alternate terms if Lawton Metrics wanted to cure, pay 3 months arrears, plus the June fee, plus a $1,500 reinstatement charge. It was generous. I knew he wouldn't. The day before my birthday, I timed the pieces. 7:52 p.m. A process server would hand Grayson a packet at the restaurant door. My resignation as company officer, effective on receipt, demand for indemnification for any post-resignation acts using my credentials, and notice of pending TWC investigation. 8:10 p.m. License revocation. 8:12 p.m. DNS update. 8:13 p.m. Mailbox freezes. 8:15 p.m. Stripe report submitted with flagged transactions labeled owner draw as marketing. If they asked for context, my attorney would reply with the receipts. Companies hate the phrase patterns of misuse. It makes them conservative. And the family? I queued 2 emails. The bursars would send the usual automated messages before mine landed. My emails were brief. As the 529 owner, I have initiated withdrawals due to a change in educational plan. You are responsible for your own tuition going forward. It was cold. It was also true. Now the house and cars. On June 1, the Lawton Family LLC had missed a property tax installment. Not a crisis, but sloppy. I paid it. Then I filed a lien against the LLC for reimbursement. Small liens don't seize houses, they cloud titles. Clouds stop refinances. Refinances pay for cars. I wasn't trying to live in their house. I wanted friction where they thought they skated. And the cars? June's lease payment hit late on the 14th. The fleet company flagged it. Recovery orders print fast when a file gets weird. June 18th arrived hot and clear. The sky over Austin looked scrubbed. I wore a simple black dress and flats I could run in if I wanted. I didn't expect to run. I expected to watch. We sat down in the private room at 7:41 p.m. 12 of us. White tablecloth. Crystal. The kind of place where staff glide and never jar a glass. He stood, tapped a fork against a flute, and said he'd prepared a roast. I braced. Here's to Nora, he said, grinning. Our favorite spreadsheet. One day she'll find what she's actually good at. Laughter. Someone whistled. He put an arm around my chair like he was generous. Don't worry, he added. We'll always keep you around, like a safety net. I tasted iron. I've never been good with humiliation. It makes my scalp prickle. I reached into my bag, found the velvet box, and placed it near his plate. He blinked at it. What's this? He said. A ring? Nora, if you propose to me, I'll have to ask my partners. People laughed again. I checked the time. 7:58 p.m. Open it, I said. He did. Inside, the 2 resin keys sat side by side. He frowned. Cute. They stand for access, I said. A is for account. B is for breath. You can live without A for a while. You can't live long without B. He rolled his eyes. That's dramatic, babe. 8:10, I said. He glanced at my phone on the table, then at his watch, and laughed like I'd attempted a magic trick. You really are adorable. At 7:59 p.m., the process server stepped into the room, waited until a server set down a plate, and said my husband's full name. He turned, confused. The server handed him a cream envelope and left. You've been served, the man said, and followed him with a smaller packet for me, my copy. He left as silently as he'd entered. The room buzzed. He didn't open it. He tucked it under his plate. Cute, he said again louder for the table. She's trying to scare me on her birthday. I held his stare. 8:10. At 8:06 p.m., my phone vibrated once in my purse. Silent mode. A text from my attorney, letters delivered. At 8:10 p.m., a quiet thing happened 20 blocks away in a climate-controlled room full of racks. A key revoked. The scheduling engine Lawton Metrics used to route every field team request, and every vendor assignment lost its license to call home. Screens didn't go black. They froze. They thought for a second. Then they started throwing errors with bland messages. License inactive. A loud thing happened next. Someone's phone rang. At 8:11 p.m., Trevor's phone buzzed. He glanced down. Huh. He tried to stand. Madison put a hand on his sleeve. It can wait, she whispered, not looking at me. 8:12, I said. He huffed. Okay, what? You shut off a toy? He lifted his glass. Friends, to Trevor's phone rang again, then Miles's. Madison's watch pinged. The 3 of them were polite at first. They silenced. They smiled. They tried to keep the room's mood up like party planners with a fire behind a curtain. Except the curtain caught. At 8:12 p.m., DNS records updated. The email servers looked up and saw a new map. Support and billing lost their routes. Shopify, Stripe, Help Desk, anything waiting for a confirmation email, hit a wall. The phones stopped ringing. They began to vibrate with messages that had the tone of planes missing runways. The words were blunt. Can't log in. Where's my dispatch? Refunding now if not fixed. Grayson's jaw worked. He opened the cream envelope with theatrical boredom, as if he'd decided to play along. He slid the papers out, scanned the first page, and turned the color of milk. You resigned, he said, voice flat. Tonight? Effective on receipt, I said. Page 2 sets indemnity for any use of my credentials after that time. If you try to use my admin logins, you'll be emailing my attorney's inbox. He loves evidence. He flicked to another page. Workforce Commission? They asked for records, I said. You're good at records, Grayson. You told people to clock out and keep working and writing. He looked at Trevor. Trevor was already typing a message with his face turned from the table. Madison stood, steadying her wine glass. We should step 813, I said. I wasn't trying to be smug. I wanted him to hear numbers like he'd forced me to hear names. Ava's text to me landed then, even though I hadn't told her anything. I only saw the preview on my lock screen. Why is my tuition due again? It hit at 8:13 p.m., right between notifications from Stripe. Account under review for patterns of misuse. Please upload receipts for the following transactions. Grayson's phone vibrated. He checked, blinked, and suddenly looked small. Sophie says the bursar reversed. They'll be fine, I said. They're smart. Adults pay for school every day without parading someone else's generosity as character. He swallowed. A laugh stuck in his throat. You can't touch my parents. That's low. You used company fleet to cover their cars. You used the LLC you stuck me in as agent to confuse their title. You missed a lease payment, I said. Immobilizers don't care how loved a car is. He tried to stand. The room spun around his effort, staff sliding in to refill water, clear crumbs, pretend everything was fine. His hand hit the table, a fork chimed. He stared at the velvet box like it had turned into a snake. What did you do to the house, he said. My mother. I paid your tax installment and filed a lien for reimbursement, I said. Title looks at liens. The refinance you whispered about, not closing. That means no cash out. That means no check for the cars. The fleet company has a file. The file has a big, red, angry flag. He laughed then, a sharp sound. All you did is slow us down. Velocity is the one thing you can't fake, I said. Dessert arrived at 8:16 p.m., little torches of creme brulee. I didn't lift my spoon. He didn't either. He was scrolling, mouth open, eyes moving fast, his rich friends bent toward him, not toward me. Someone said, too loud, this is sabotage. Someone else said, it's compliance. Explain to your sisters, I said, soft enough that only he could hear. Explain to your parents. And maybe call Miles and Trevor's investors. They're going to want to know why a non-paying licensee kept shipping code. He stood so fast his chair scraped. We're leaving, he said to the table, like he could dismiss them, and the night. Before dessert, I said, and stood too. Your timing's right. Outside, the air hit us hot. He grabbed my elbow. My body went cold, then warm with rage. He let go when a valet looked over. His nose flared. You think this wins? He said. You think you scared me? I scheduled reminders, I said. What's after fear, shame, acceptance? He started dialing. A tow truck pulled past the front of the restaurant, hydraulics sighing, a Range Rover perched on its back like a whale on a sling. It could have been any Range Rover, but I watched his mouth as he read the license plate and didn't finish the sentence he'd started. We didn't sleep that night. Calls, emails, hollow thuds of people finding out what people had hidden. At 12:03 a.m., his mother called me a word I won't repeat and asked how I could steal her house. I didn't, I said. It's still yours. It's just more expensive now to pretend you're careful. At 12:40 a.m., Madison texted me for the first time in her life. This is nuclear. Stop, I replied with the signed license, the cure notices, the dates. You look competent, I wrote. Act like it. The morning brought official voices. Stripe wanted receipts. The workforce investigator requested payroll ledgers for January through May and any policies related to overtime. The city asked about an LLC agent change. I sent what I had and declined what I didn't. I had resigned. They could do their own work for once. You think that's the end? It wasn't. The mid-roll surge lives in the weeks after, where you think consequences are baked and discover new ones rising. On July 1st, a former client forwarded me a message from Miles. We've rebuilt without Nora's tool, he wrote. Better, faster, safer. An hour later, the same client forwarded a cease and desist I had prepared with my attorney and held back. It cited trade secret protections, the routing logic I had developed at Juniper Array and licensed, which they had exported and attempted to recreate by moving commas. You can borrow an idea. You cannot clone a fingerprint. We filed, and my attorney CC'd their new counsel. I told him I wasn't hunting money there. I wanted them to spend a summer defending the idea that workarounds are honest when you ignore contracts. On July 9th, the City of Austin Code Department held a hearing I didn't even plan. A neighbor had filed a complaint about the Lawtons' Westlake house being used as an event rental without permits. My lien had nothing to do with it, but the hearing put a bright light on an address and names. They got a warning and a timeline to comply. The board added a note. Subsequent violations may result in daily fines up to $500. I wrote the number down because numbers like that teach. On July 15th, the Texas Workforce Commission convened mediation for 2 of the contractors. Grayson sent a manager. I showed up because I had been their boss in everything but title. The room was stale and polite. The investigator slid copies of those clock out, keep working emails across the table. The manager swallowed. They settled for $12,600 between the two, paid by cashier's check in 3 business days. The investigator reminded the manager there were still 4 more claims open. She looked at me like I'd built the table. On August 1st, TWC issued an order for back wages and penalties totaling $38,400. The letter's last paragraph mattered. Failure to comply may result in liens, levies, and referrals to the Attorney General. I didn't cheer. I took a picture of the paragraph and saved it with my star. By then, Grayson had moved into a friend's spare condo. He said it was temporary. The office had shrunk to a handful who could stomach the noise. The little engine that routed calls now belonged to somebody who answered emails and charged on time. They could have paid me and kept it. Pride is expensive. The partners wanted a meeting, not with me alone, with my attorney. We met on August 12th in a bland conference room, water bottles sweating circles on a wooden table. They made a speech about civil humanity. My attorney let them finish, then slid a term sheet across the wood. The title read, Mutual Release and Dissolution. It was clean. I'd relinquish any claim on Lawton Metrics beyond what they owed me for license arrears and reinstatement. They'd acknowledge the license breach, pay 3 months arrears, June, and the $1,500 reinstatement charge, plus half my legal fees. They'd dissolve the company by September 30th. They could start fresh under a new name without my code. Everyone would stop performing toughness and start performing signatures. Trevor bristled. Madison read. Miles watched me like I had turned a wheel he only now saw was attached to a chain he was locked around. They asked for a week. That's fine, I said. But understand something. This isn't a negotiation about whether your company survives. It doesn't. This is a negotiation about whether it dies clean. On September 3rd, they signed. 2 wires hit, $19,800 for license arrears and reinstatement, $4,100 for half my legal fees. It wasn't a fortune, it was a record. The dissolution filing hit the Secretary of State's site at 3:22 p.m. I checked once, saved a PDF and closed the tab. And the family? The lien on the house stayed until October, when Elaine called to ask how to remove it. Reimburse me, I said. Plus the $512 HOA I paid when your son didn't. She did, through clenched teeth. The fleet cars? One got recovered and resold. One they kept after a late fee that felt by the tone of Victor's voice like swallowing glass. Sophie took a semester off. Ava picked up an extra shift at the bookstore and texted me in November. Something small and human about how she understood why I did what I did. I stood in my kitchen and cried into a towel so I wouldn't wake anyone. Grayson tried a new startup with a new circle of new friends. He posted fewer jokes. When we finally sat across from each other in a quiet mediation room to sign our separation agreement, he looked at the tabletop more than he looked at me. You could have just left, he said, no bite in it. I tried, I said. You made leaving expensive. I itemized the cost. He exhaled through his nose like he used to after long runs. His hands were tan from a summer spent outdoors instead of in an office. You ruined my birthday, he said suddenly, like we were at that table again. You ruined mine first, I said. We split what was left slowly, like the last pieces of a cake you're both tired of. I kept my grandmother's quilt, my books, my burned-in knowledge of how to find leverage without going feral. He kept his watches and the friends who still laughed. I moved into a 1-bedroom with light on 2 sides and a neighbor who plays cello on Sundays. I slept. I cooked. I made something with my hands every week so my body remembered I wasn't just a mind for hire. If you're looking for a moral, I don't carry one. I carry a little velvet box that used to hold 2 resin keys and now holds paper clips. It reminds me that small objects can control big doors if you know where the hinges are, and that when someone raises a glass to toast your failure, you can stand, slide your little gift across the table, and let the panic find its own feet.